this will still be relevant to all sorts of creative people. So, all right, so how to write poems. How to write poems. Now, there are a lot of philosophies on this, but my philosophy, like everything else, it's about individuality and yourself. So if you want to be unique and non-mediocre, and you want to have an impact, have meaningful poems, you don't just go and write about what you see out there. Don't just write about a bird unless you feel something there. If you feel something there, truly within yourself, then you write about the bird and so forth. Now, I'm gonna reveal the most secret thing I have when it comes to artistry, and some artists will just understand this, perhaps others don't agree, but doesn't matter. This is, in my opinion, what the greats are doing. So you always, this is my biggest secret, by the way. So I'm gonna give you my deepest, technique, and this is more important than just technique in forms of, words and assembly of words and so forth, and rhyming even and so forth. If you want to rhyme, you don't have to rhyme. Anyway, so this is the secret, all right? There is no secret. I'm gonna reveal it. So this is what you always ask yourself things, and it has to build up to a certain point. You can't just, you might be able to write all the time, but if you're totally dedicated to poetry, it depends on the person, of course, or the artistry you're doing. Now this will work with books as well and so forth. So, and philosophy as well. You always ask yourself, what am I feeling right in this moment, right now? What do I want to express right now? What is meaningful to me right now? But in terms of emotion and thoughts and concepts as well. If you have a concept, keep the poem or the work or the character, whatever it is, you always go around the concept. It doesn't matter, you never leave the concept. You always have that as the core. You see, core here as well. And in terms of poems, the core always is, you're basically expressing your inner soul, so to speak, your inner being, all right? And what's been accumulated through the recent months or even a year, and then you capture that as one. And you put it into words, translate it into poetry, into that poem. And that is it. That's it. That's it. There is nothing else to it. There is nothing else to it. There is no step 1, step 2, step 3. Then you just go, move. Then you just move. You go the first, the second, or whatever structure you want to have. Doesn't matter. The structure is not the important thing. The important thing is that you're asking yourself these questions within yourself, and then you just express it onto that paper or digital paper. Doesn't matter. The medium doesn't matter, Don't get stuck on medium. I want to have it on this paper. I want to have it this beautiful, these words and this. You don't think about, I want to put these words in. You might have that a little bit in the background. Approximately, you have the words you like, and use those words that you like, and you have those in the background always, because the words you love, and it's not a problem if you repeat them, because this will be your language. You see, that's how you're unique. That's how you will be unique. You always speak your own language. You basically create your own language, and eventually people will resonate with it. Now you can check out the recent one I made, recent poem I made was My Gift to the World. I have a video on this. It will pop up here, and you can check it out. But so that is basically how I write every single poem. And I want every single poem to be personal. And as I said in the previous video, I don't separate life and my work. So, and that is what I notice the greats are doing. They don't separate their life and their work, their emotion, feeling, thoughts. Everything is one. And in artistry, there is a little bit of chaos in artistry. You can't have that much order in artistry. It's not mathematical because it's about human. You see, you ask yourself these questions within yourself. So that's why, because we're humans, we're complex creatures, and that's why it is like that. Now, there is a little bit of structure, like everything else, you know. It is order-ish, but it's not totally that. Because there is always an error, because that makes it beautiful. That makes the poem beautiful. The fact that it's not perfect makes it beautiful. But not just that. If it comes from you within, from your heart, so to speak, or, you know, metaphorically, or from, you know, your soul, your very being, then it will become a great poem. And don't just write. You can, of course, you can experiment, but you will notice that regular poems like that will just be generic. They won't have a soul, basically. Because if you put your soul into it, it will have a part of you. But if you don't, it will just be surface level. If you're just describing nature, oh, nature is beautiful and this and that and the wind, and that's meaningless. People they'll just, all right, yeah, it's beautiful words, but it doesn't give you something. So as an artist, you give something of yourself, and then the person will notice this and they will take it. So you see, you're a giver, the creators are givers, and the consumers basically are takers. And creator becomes the taker in terms of legacy. But that's the grander thing. That's if you're ambitious and you're going after your purpose, you're going after the reason why you live. So that is important. Now, I think this is important actually with basically anything. You should ask yourself this, and you always have to have a why, because when you have a why, you can endure anything. So you go deep within yourself. And the deeper you go within yourself, the more meaningful this poem can become, and giving to others. And you see, that's my third purpose principle, because when people read this later, they will take this to heart, and a great poem will sit with them for a long time. And that's what great work does. When you read poems, great poems, like Arseny Tarkovsky, all right? That's one I like. If this poem stays with you, it's highly likely that, as an artist even, that this is a great poem. You've got something there. You've captured your soul, basically. You've captured something. And that's essentially what you're doing. You're capturing your soul so that you become immortal, all right? That's essentially what you're doing. And that's what I'm doing with YouTube here. I'm capturing my soul, basically. You see, I capture expression, except that, you know, it's sometimes artistic and it's sometimes more philosophical. But the artistry is always, to me, philosophical, because when you ask these questions within you, this is philosophical. You know, you always go, what's the meaning of my life, when you put your soul into it. That's the underlying question all the time. And then when you go, you know, and the answer will be different to all different kinds of walks of life, and that's what makes it beautiful. But the universal is the question itself. It's the way you're thinking, the artistic thinking. And this is what I believe it's the greatest way to do this. You avoid mediocrity, you avoid this surface level stuff. All these surface level things, you avoid those. You go after what's most important. You go to the heart of the thing, and then you capture it and you put it on there, and then immortality. That's the secret. I mean, it's not a secret, but that's the secret. Then, of course, you gotta find your own style, but the style, it's your own language. The words you love will become your style, basically. Basically, that's it. I mean, don't complicate things. Of course, you can experiment and see your limits, but you will eventually find, it will narrow down and you will find it. You will find it. And you, of course, you gotta write not just 1 or 10, but write 100 or 50 or 100, and then you will find your language, approximately there. But it always evolves because you evolve as a human being. It's not static like that. You can have phases in poetry. I have basically my blue phase, like Picasso had, and yellow phase or something. So you can have these different phases, and yet you're still you, and so forth. Go according to your taste as well. Don't go beat poetry or something like that just because or whatever is popular today. I don't even know what's I guess it's slam poetry or something, and that's also an expression in some sense. It never gives, it's more political. It never gives the meaning of life. So it will never be that meaningful. It cannot be, because if you're just political, that's surface level, especially if it's current day politics. Well, political philosophy as well. I mean, if it's current day stuff. You don't go after current day, all right? You go after the eternal questions. The eternal questions. The eternal questions will always make you relevant, all right? Love, death, life, all those things will always make you relevant. And you create, every single poem you create has to be this, so that you're relevant forever, all right? And you're relevant forever when you capture humanity. When you capture that, you capture your soul, and thus you capture humanity. Because you capture your individuality, but when people resonate with this, they can always, you've captured all of humanity, basically. Because we're all the same, and yet we're not the same, all right? We're both. We're simultaneously individuals and a total sum of people as well. So that is that, and that is how you write poems in a meaningful way. But this is relevant for all creative people. You should always do this. This is what I always do. I always do this. Every single poem I've written, every single thing I've created has this. Every single thing I've created has this underlying question and expressiveness through question and so forth. But philosophy goes more directly on it, and then artistry goes more emotional. One is intellectual, one is more emotional. But there is always a little bit of emotion there. There is always a little bit intellectual there. So you see, they become one. They become one. So sometimes I don't even separate them at all, and sometimes I separate them, and so forth. So that is that, and it will be a little bit shorter today. But anyway, I will see you tomorrow.